morning, good afternoon, good evening, or it's 2 a.m. Good to already. This is Eagle Eyes on Tech. I am Eagle Falcon, and joining with me today, once again, Regret the Van. How are you doing today, Regret?
Acquiring more gray hairs.
Have you tried not doing that?
That's unfortunate, but it's happening.
Well, just make sure that your gray hairs just become nice and long. That way you can at least pull off, like, an anime villain look.
They're all coming into a stripe, so I can pull off a skunk sort of anime look.
That's unacceptable. I'm sorry, we have to kill you now.
No!
Kind of like how all my plans for today were just outright slaughtered by the fact that I forgot that Apple does this crazy developer conference at the beginning of June. Darndest thing. Yeah, so Apple's WWDC happened and then dropped all the announcements. All of them. Just about everything got some form of an update. I'm actually going to go in the order of the keynote, because I actually went back and watched the entire keynote just for all the... I take that back. I did skip some parts. I didn't need to see, like, the 30-minute demos of how to use the notification bar. I could live without that. But one of the bigger ones that's going to not get talked about, Apple TV is finally getting Amazon Prime.
Okay.
There are a few other UI tweaks announced, but this is one of the first boxes to get Amazon Prime. Just about every other set-top box was unable to seal this. It seemed as though Amazon was going to be only through the Fire TV and stick and whatnot.
Yeah. The problem with going through, like, I'm only going to go through my device, means that the adoption of your service is going to be extremely limited by the adoption of the device the service runs on. That's why Netflix took off so fast, was that it went, oh, well, if you want to run me on, like, the PlayStation 3 or the Xbox 360, go ahead. You want me to run on the Wii? Go ahead. So all these devices suddenly can support it. And Netflix has got really popular because of that. Well, Amazon Prime is now having to do the same thing.
It is nice to finally see Amazon learn that this is the way to advance your service. So now they're actually taking Amazon Prime Video, at least in my opinion, finally seriously, as opposed to just kind of, yeah, okay, it's the hobby that Apple TV used to be. Or at the time was iTV. Though, there's one thing I can't confirm that this article from Tech Hive wants to, that the Apple TV is Amazon Prime, but not Netflix. And I cannot, and unfortunately, I don't own an Apple TV. I didn't have enough time to do enough research to see if the current version of Apple TV does or doesn't. I'm like 95% certain that the older version of Apple TV did in fact support Netflix. So I don't know if that means that at some point recently the newer Apple TVs with their touchpad remote and Siri dropped Netflix, or if this article is just wrong.
I would guess that it's wrong.
That's what it seems like
unless
to me.
Unless Apple and Netflix had a falling out, I don't see a reason that they would be pulled from Apple TV.
I can't imagine that any sort of fallout like that would have happened. It just seems...
And it would have made tech news if it did happen.
Yeah. So, if anyone who does own a current gen Apple TV, I'm not talking about the old gens, the current gens that support Siri, I could have swore we had those off. My bad, guys. For those of you on the podcast, if you don't know, we do live stream this on Twitch. One of our Twitch alerts just went off. That's what the yay was. So we always. No, it's the Fluttershy yay. That really quiet yay.
Oh, okay.
We can always talk about that in the post show, but in any case, I do appreciate the tip, but we are doing a podcast recording. All of that will be done here. If you're in the current Twitch chat right now and have questions about tech, please do ask them. By all means, please do. And on that note, we're going to move on to Mac OS. Now, I don't have a whole lot to say about this because there's only like two things really of note to me that came out in this announcement. I mean, actually three. First off, they made a tweak to Safari, which is also supposed to come to Windows. That's like the first compelling reason to actually use Safari.
All right, what'd they tweak?
That it will natively block auto-playing videos.
Okay. That's nice.
That is like the first legitimate reason I've ever heard to use Safari. There's been the whole, it just runs faster, it does this better, just whatever. That's all perspective anyway. They did try to claim
I'm pretty sure if I open the hood on Chrome and gut Chrome, I can get Chrome to run stupidly fast, but why?
I mean, really, there's a bigger element to what's going to make your web browser run faster. It's called your internet speed. That's the bigger factor. It's just like, it doesn't matter whether you have a V6 engine or a V8 engine. If you're putting mud in the tank instead of gasoline, the car is going to run slower.
Well, theoretically, it won't run at all.
It shouldn't, anyway.
Unless you're going downhill, in which case you just kind of push it and then just watch the train wreck go.
Not my best analogy, but it is live after all. Alright, that was one thing that macOS did that is actually noteworthy. Second, they are finally redoing the ancient, archaic file system.
And about time, too.
Yeah, they're only like 20 years late to the party. So,
well, not just that. I would really hope that the new file system is more stable and less prone to corrupting the hard disk.
I would assume so.
Because I was reading a pretty much a autopsy of the older Apple file system that you can't actually write to the hard disk directly. Only the operating system can do that. If you want to write to the hard disk, you write to a page in RAM, and then the the operating system ferries that page to the hard disk.
That's only slightly inefficient.
What happens if the machine crashes during that ferrying process?
Shh. Apple is flawless.
Yeah, and pretty much the end result was that if this happened, you ended up with a chance that it would corrupt the entire drive's file system.
What? That never happens. All the time.
Yeah.
But no, I 100% agree. It's about time, and time will tell whether the new file format, which I literally forgot what its name is, but it was just, I think it might have actually just been like Apple File System.
It's Apple. I would not be surprised if they called it the iFat.
It wasn't iFat. I would have made fun of it forever if it was iFat. Plus, they're doing a lot less. They're doing a lot less of throwing I in front of anything. Like, ever since Steve Jobs passed away, that's pretty much gone. It's all about throwing Apple logos in front of things now. Apple logo watch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
It's
it's
only a
not
matter-
Apple logo laptop. But
I'm surprised that we don't actually have a generic Apple emoji in all phones at this point. Actually, I'm going to check that.
while you're checking that, I'm going to cover the last thing of note involving the new Mac OS. And that's the name.
Okay.
Those of you who are watching this live already see the problem with the name. So, I want you to think for a minute. We have gone from Mavericks, Yosemite, or Yosemite, depending on how you pronounce things, to Sierra. And before that, it was all cats. So what's this one called? High Sierra. The dev team literally just ran out of time and just called it High Sierra. You couldn't have just named it after a different mountain. You could have called it Denali. You could have called it Everest. You could have called it Lake. macOS Lake.
Any number of mountains.
In fact, Apple, here's what I strongly recommend you do. Just call it macOS 10 point whatever. You're done naming things after places and cats. You have clearly either A, hire someone who can read a map, or B, just stop.
Well, here's the thing: is they could hire somebody. They probably did hire somebody to read a map. It happened to be Apple Maps.
Mini Lego Man in the chat actually came up with a better name already with macOS and cheese. I mean, that's
good.
That's an obvious joke name, but even that's better than macOS High Sierra. Oh.
Ah, well, we still get to laugh at Apple.
Yep. Speaking of laughing at Apple, let's actually look at the hardware they announced. So after they went and talked about macOS, they did talk about the Watch OS. I'm not going to lie, the Watch OS really didn't have a whole lot to talk about. There's a few little quality of life upgrades. Developers still can't make watch faces for the Apple Watch. But they did announce, like, Toy Story watch faces, and down the road, watches will be able to talk with exercise equipment to get better readouts on how well you ran on a treadmill.
I was about to say you ran out of treadmill.
I'm pretty sure that you do not need the watch to find out that you ran out of treadmill. I'm going to go on a hunch and say that your face hitting the treadmill is a pretty good key that you ran out of treadmill. And that you probably should have walked faster. Or slowed down the treadmill. So, we're going to move on to the iMac. The iMac did get an update. And the update is about what you'd expect. All the CPUs have been updated to Kaby Lake. So they now jumped ahead 2 generations, or possibly 3.
Ooh, fancy. God damn it, camera, stop that.
Hey, it's a big deal when Apple decides, you know what? We should keep up with modern times. I did not think that it would be a big deal, because consistently Apple updated the Macs with the newest processors. for a while, products were just being left behind. And granted, this time around, the Mac Pro and the Mac Mini are both kind of left in the dust. They were both just kind of forgotten. Same thing with the MacBook Air.
Yeah.
I mean, really...
Yeah. I'm wondering if Apple is going into like a TikTok cycle where you have the iMac and the MacBook get updates, then the other products get their updates, and they're just going to keep going back and forth.
I don't know. Because it doesn't seem like a TikTok. A TikTok, there would be a consistent do this year, not do this year, do this year, not this year. This just seems to be at random. Because it was like the iMac was 2 years behind. The MacBook Pro was 4 years behind. Then last year it got an update. This year it got another update. The MacBook has been consistently getting updates, but they've all been so laughably small. We're going to get into the MacBook. Don't trust me. That's one that really kind of tweaked me a bit. The Mac Mini just seems to be just... There's like one guy who has a Mac Mini under his dresser and just forgot about it forever. Nobody else seems to have one over there. Then the Mac Pro, they're just staring at this black cylinder going, is that a computer or a trash can? I think it's a tin of coffee, actually. Is that a coffee maker?
Well, no, is it? No, is it a tin or a trash can? Let's throw some paper in it. Oh, nope, bounced out. Must be a trash can. It's full.
It can't be, because how do we get the lid off?
It's the brand new iCoffee.
It's the iCoffee. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. Anyway, they did some basic updates. There's the 21.5 inches start at a 1920 by 1080 display. Then it goes up to a 4K display at mid-tier and higher. And at the same time, that mid-tier starts getting Radeon Pro graphics. With a Radeon Pro 555, the next up getting to 560. Both of them kind of graphic cards, but at least they're there. It's better than the baseline getting an Iris Pro. Baseline starts at, I just had the prices and now I lost them, at $10.99. Mid-tier starts at $12.99. Baseline also starts with a 2.3 gigahertz Core i5. Mid-tier starts with a 3 gigahertz quad-core Core i5. I'll be real honest, if you're in the Mac ecosystem, ignore this $10.99 option. Erase it from your mind.
Ignore all of... Actually, ignore the low end and mid-tier, because at the money you're plunking down for the machines, it's like, just go for the high end.
Oh, here's the thing. The high end at $14.99, at least on this 21.5 inch, is 3.4 gigahertz Core i5 and a 560 versus a 555. You're getting minor performance there for $200 more. I would actually say that mid-tier is the best option. That just seems to be the best price for performance in that size category. You then move on to the 27-inch, and it is just night and day. With a 570 at the low end and a 580 at the high end. And there, you are shelling out some serious dough for any of them.
Mm-hmm. With the low end starting at 1,700 and
1,800
towards the high end,
1,799.
1,800.
Yeah, that's fine.
1,800. With it creeping up to 2,300 for the high end unit.
Now, one thing that was actually kind of note at the keynote, they were pushing something on that high-end one. They were pushing to the fact that it is VR compatible. First off, I'm not going to lie. I'm a little surprised that Apple is acknowledging that VR exists.
I'm surprised that they aren't trying to come out with their own VR headset that pretty much only works with Apple devices.
You see, that's what I would have expected. That's what I would have expected as well. But
and then you would have had all the sheeple claiming that Apple invented virtual reality.
Yeah. So no, they are working with Steam on it, and they did acknowledge that. Oh yeah, that was the other thing I forgot to mention. The new macOS High Sierra, the perfectly named macOS that took all the thought in the world, also does support A, virtual reality, and B, external GPUs. That was a little
Unjust Banana points out in the comments, Apple still can't make a box with off-the-shelf components.
No, they can't. And I'm going to get to that more in a bit. That is one thing to note, though. The iMac is still, based on its design, unserviceable. Steps 1 and 2 would require a heat gun to melt the glue on the glass, and then high-powered suction cups to remove the glass without shattering it, in order to service anything.
Yeah, no, as slick as and minimalistic as the iMacs are, I tried to service an older one before they even made the switch to Intel. So this is back with the PowerPC days. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out how to get the thing open.
Want to know a secret? I actually loved those iMacs. There's 4 screws on the bottom. You remove those 4 screws, and they've actually got washers on them, so you can't lose them. You just loose them, and then they'll just hang there. And then the entire back will just come off.
Huh.
And they have all the components facing you. You could actually service everything. Power supply, RAM, hard drive, everything.
Yeah, whereas these are meant that if anything goes wrong on the machine, throw it out, get a new one.
Yeah. Which brings me to the next bane of my existence within Apple, the MacBook.
More throw it out should it break.
This one I hate the most. This laptop, of all the laptops in existence, is hands down the most, if you buy this, you are throwing your money away. Because I want you to remember something. This is a 12-inch laptop that starts at $1,299. At $1,300 is what this starts at. And this isn't outdated tech. This is now current, up-to-date specs. The screen resolution, which is the high point of this laptop, 2304 by 1440. So you're talking about 2026 pixels per inch. That's not, or I'm sorry, 226 pixels per inch. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. That is in fact the high point of this machine. The processor starts at a 1.2 gigahertz dual core M3 processor. That, granted, can turbo boost up to 3 gigahertz. So for periodic moments, it can be a whole 3 gigahertz. But the majority of the time, it's going to be at that 1.2 gigahertz. That's where it starts. It starts.
Okay, just to give people, or listeners, reference, the Intel Pentium 3, a chip that came out in 1999, its top speed was 1.2 gigahertz.
My phone's 1.6.
I'm pretty sure my phone's somewhere hovering
Now,
around there.
granted, there is a huge difference between the clock speed of this phone and the clock speed of those older chips. The architecture on this one does make it feel a lot faster than it actually is, but still, you compare it to other laptops that start at 2.2 gigahertz, and that's considered low end. Remember, this is the start. I'll get back to what you can upgrade it to. It starts at 8 gigabytes of DDR3 onboard memory that is non-upgradable. Starts with a 256 gigabyte PCI Express based onboard SSD. That's Apple talk for it's an M2. It's M2. It's nothing fancy. It's just M2. Integrated Intel HD graphics 615, which is about the lowest end GPU you can get that's new. And then, of course, your built-in Wi-Fi, your built-in Bluetooth. That's 802.11ac. It's the highest end there is. Bluetooth 4.2. It's the highest end you can be. You know, that's all standard stuff. Huh. There is an Amber Alert in my area, so that is good to know. I apologize for that interruption. I thought
Which
for a
probably
moment
means that I'll probably...
Yeah, yours is going to be going off soon. And of course, the key thing to point out with all of this is that there is still one USB-C port. Still only one. That's both
and
for charging.
Doing everything.
That's both for charging and anything else. If you want to make that do anything else, you got to start buying dongles. All of that starts at $1,300. You can upgrade it, though, to a 1.3 gigahertz dual-core Core i5. You heard me right. That's a chip that apparently exists, according to Apple. Or a 1.4 gigahertz dual-core Core i7, which also apparently exists, according to Apple. Now, you might be thinking, there's no way that there is a 1.4 gigahertz Core i7. And I'm not going to lie, I thought the same thing too. So, I went and did the research. These cores do exist. The Core M3 7Y32 processor is a real processor. 2 cores, 1.1 gigahertz, max turbo speed, 3 gigahertz. It is a 4.5 watt part that can take up to 7 watts.
Okay, I'm looking at the spec sheets for this processor, and I'm looking over it, and the power requirements scream that this processor was meant for embedded computing applications. This was never intended to be a consumer processor.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm pretty sure I can find some PC 104 boards that have this Intel Core M3 processor as its main chipset. And that will be considered a very powerful PC 104 board. In full-blown applications, this is just a pathetic processor.
This gets better. This gets better.
It's Apple. Of course it's going to get better, and by better I mean worse.
There is also, this Core i5 also exists. And I want to also keep in mind, this is the only Core i5 that is like this. Every other Core i5 is designed to be more powerful than this. 2 cores, 4 threads, base clock speed 1.2, max turbo speed 3.2, 4.5 watt TDP, consuming up to 3 watts.
Again, it just screams embedded computing applications.
But wait, there's more.
Of course.
The Core i7 chip, the one that Apple's talking about, doesn't exist. However, there is still a pathetically low-end Core i7. This is the closest I could find. The Core i7 7Y75 processor. 2 cores, 4 threads, 1.3 gigahertz, max turbo speed, 3.6, 4.5 watts, taking up to 7. Again, an embedded computing chip that would be more likely to be found in a tablet. And that's what this screams of. It's tablet hardware in a laptop. I just find it more funny that Apple couldn't just go, okay, we're going to put down 1.4 gigahertz so it doesn't seem anywhere near as bad as it actually is. That is still incredibly sad.
Okay.
In fact, actually, the Core i5 is wrong, too. Because Apple said it's a 1.3 gigahertz instead of 1.2.
I'm going to point something out here. This is also the same company that said the A9 mobile processor in their iPhones and iPads was a desktop class processor. Well, now we actually understand what they got that benchmark that it was a desktop class processor was from these embedded processors.
Here's the difference, though. I believe it was the A8 at the time, actually, that they claimed was a desktop class processor. Now they're on the A9 and the A10. At least there it's a custom chip. At least there they could say, okay, we can run iTunes on this. That thrashes our Intel processors because iTunes is one of the most inefficient programs in all of existence. But we've actually got to run efficiently on this, therefore, desktop-grade processor. That's just marketing speech. That's just salesmanship.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, I just threw that out there just to poke at Apple, because
I'm going to do one better than
I would... Okay, go ahead.
I want to think about this for a minute. This is tablet-grade hardware, okay?
Yes.
We can agree on that. In fact, if you look at the deconstruction of this thing, this entire thing is just small piece of PCB, roughly the size of 2 RAM sticks, and the rest of the machine is battery. Okay, it's got built-in keyboard, built-in trackpad. It's got 1 port, just like a tablet. It has 1 headphone jack, just like a tablet. You know, your little camera, just like a tablet. So, it's just, it's a tablet in a laptop form factor, except at 3 times the cost of a tablet.
And I'm going to wager that this Samsung tablet and aftermarket keyboard would be more productive than that laptop.
Tough call. It's going to be much cheaper. I don't know if it's going to be as productive. That's a tough call. I mean, for starters, you don't get either one of them because you're productive.
No, you go for.
Here's
PC.
Here's the key thing I want to point out. What is the one thing a tablet does better than a PC?
It's almost always is an instant on. When you push the power button, it's boom. It's right there ready for you to go.
You can get that on a PC, though, but ignore that for a minute. What's the other thing? What's the one thing in the spec sheet that a tablet does better at, besides portability?
I'm actually not seeing anything that's stabbing out life. Going, this is wrong.
Battery life.
Okay.
That's what I'm going at. The battery life on tablets is crazy high. Normally on a tablet, you can get close to almost a full day out of it doing mundane tasks.
Okay, yeah, I will agree with that assessment.
Somehow, even though the entire internal is all battery, except for one piece of actual computing, we are only getting 10 hours of battery life out of this thing. They have somehow only got a 41.4 watt hour battery in this thing.
Now, to be fair to Apple, most tablet screens are not 12-inch diameters.
This is true. But
It's diagonal. So the screens consume a huge amount of power to light them up.
This is worse battery life than their iPad Pro has, which is a bigger screen.
Then somebody dropped the ball. Oh, by the way, I actually finally got to see an iPad Pro, the big ones. They are so ridiculous. Like,
yes, they are. Save it though.
Like the operating system on the tablet doesn't even know what to do with that big of a display.
So yeah,
it's like all the icons are spaced like an inch out.
Yeah,
it's bad.
It is bad. So that concludes the MacBook. The MacBook Pro also did get an update. This honestly is this honestly is just nothing. It really isn't. The 13.3 inch, it got a little bit of a price drop. It now starts at $12.99, where it started at $13.99, and it got updated to Kaby Lake.
So pretty much nothing. Just
not really. The 13 inches are still all using integrated Intel. The 15 inches are across the board using Radeon Pros. So
I would actually say that of this these are probably some of the better laptops that Apple's produced.
It is. Though
still you're throwing your money away, but
I still dislike that stupid touch bar at the top. It still irks me. It still is just so gimmicky and so useless. But they insist on that, and that's not going away. But this isn't the fun thing. No, the last fun Mac to talk about is one that didn't exist until Monday. And that is the iMac Pro.
Oh boy, let's go and configure this one out and put ourselves 20,000 in the hole.
So, they don't have the ability to configure yet. Otherwise, I would have. So,
Can I buy a house with how much this thing will cost me?
The answer is yes, because it is running on high-end components. Now, a couple things I want to talk about with this. First off, I do think the Mac Pro and the Mac Mini, they might be done. They might be switching to all-in-ones being their only desktops.
If they're going to go to their all-in-ones as desktop, then they really should make these things serviceable. Not, the screen died, throw it out, get a new one. Because at a $20,000 per unit cost, and I'm just throwing that number out there, but that's... company is going to buy it.
Especially since you're talking about professional equipment. That's the one thing professionals always look at. Any piece of off-lease professional computing piece of equipment I get, what's the one advantage it has?
you can open it up and get your hands dirty with its guts and repair it.
Even
Upgrade it.
Even the professional all-in-ones, I can do that. Now, Apple did say they were going to update the MacBook, the Mac Pro. In fact, Unjust Man just said that. They said several months ago they were going to update the Mac Pro. I think this is it. I think this is the update to the Mac Pro. I will not be surprised if the Mac Pro does not see an update and this is it. But let's talk a little bit about this. So, right off the bat, the display is the exact same as the other 27 inches, which is a 5K screen. It's a pretty good screen. I could throw out numbers all day, but it's going to be one you're going to have to see.
That is one thing I can always...
The processor is going to use, the only detail we have is that it's going to be either an 8-core, a 10-core, or an 18-core Xeon. Those are going to be your three options. No information on the clock speed. It's going to start at 32 gigabytes of ECC RAM, upgradable to either 64 or 128. It is going to start with a 1 terabyte SSD. Can be upgraded to a 2 or 4 gig SSD. It is just going to have Vega GPU in it. No details as to...
No details at all.
It's going to run AMD's Vega stuff. We have a 1080p FaceTime camera on it. There are 4 USBs and 4 Thunderbolt 3s on the back. And because it's going to be running a Xeon, it's actually going to have the bandwidth to power all 4. Unlike the MacBook Pro, which can't power all of its ports at once.
Ouch.
It is going to have, by default, 10 gigabit Ethernet, which is nice. It is going to have space gray peripherals to go with the fact that it's a space gray iMac. That is literally going to be the only way you can tell the difference between an iMac and an iMac Pro. The iMac Pro is going to be darker. And that's it. Now,
I see Apple is still keeping with their chiclet style keyboard that is awful to type on.
Everyone is. Unfortunately, the chiclet keyboard haters like you are just kind of SOL because unfortunately, Apple made that switch and dragged everyone with them.
I know. It's so sad. Like, why?
Let's be real honest. You knew the instant Lenovo ThinkPads switched to that style, you were doomed.
Sadly, I was. Everybody's moving to that silly little chiclet keyboard. I hate it.
Now,
I hate the one that I bought for my tablet.
2 more points I want to make here. First off, one thing that might pop into your mind. High-end Vega GPU, an 18-core Xeon. How are you keeping that thing cool?
It's going to get tad toasty, so either you're underclock or undervolt. Or both.
Oh, no. Unfortunately, I can't get to this thing yet. Don't worry, Unjust. We're getting to the HomePod. It's coming, don't worry. I'm going in the order of what they talked about. HomePod was their one more thing.
Anyways,
Now,
I'm looking at your screen because I didn't seem to find the article that has the thing torn apart.
I'm gonna read out exactly what Apple says. Performance take power, and power makes heat. To deal with it, we completely redesigned the thermal architecture of the iMac Pro with innovative dual blowers. Do you know how innovative that is?
About as innovative as taping a box fan to a full tower.
Alienware has been using dual blowers on laptops since what? 2001?
I could think of a lot of companies that have been doing dual blowers on laptops.
I mean, how many blowers are in my Z800 right now? 5?
Don't want
Six
to don't want to count.
6 if I include the one on the graphic card.
I think I have you beat by one more. I have 7 in my machine.
Yeah, we're also talking about pre-builts. I mean, if we wanted to actually start competing with fans, I mean, we'd both go custom make one and then wonder, why did we put 20 fans in this one PC?
No, it's just going to be very simple. You turn it on, the PC flies away. Whee!
Yeah, really?
Then you go get a Mac.
I'm going to slap you later. Anyway. Now, unfortunately, I can't get this thing to play. But they did have this thing animated to show that it draws air in from the underside, across the PCB, through the twin blowers, and then twin blowers go through the heatsink, and then out the bottom again. Or it goes out through a vent on the back that I can't see because that would be where the stand is. I don't know which one it is. I have been trying to find all the pictures I could to see this thing at every angle I could, and I can't determine exactly where the exhaust is going. I do know the intake is from the massive amount of ventilation on the bottom. And I'll give Apple some credit here. That should work in theory. But let's be real honest for a minute. This isn't innovative. This is cooling a computer 101.
Yeah. And actually, I'm going to point out that if they're discharging the air right back out the bottom of the machine,
yeah, it's going to
right by the cold air in, it's going to take that hot air right back in.
Yeah, there is that part.
Aerodynamics 101. Each time you have a air intake, it pulls pretty much like a cone of air.
Yeah,
it pulls it in.
So, I mean, we're going to need to see the actual finished product. This isn't going to come out until December.
It should be very entertaining to watch the teardowns of this machine.
So they announced this just to beat the leakers inside their own outfit. And that's not anything new. Apple's been showing more signs of doing that these past few years. Don't think it has anything to do with current other facts in the news or whatever. That's been something that Apple's been doing whenever they have a new product. But there was one thing they mentioned in their keynote that really got me. They said to build a workstation tower of this caliber would cost $7,000. And that this iMac-Pro starts at $5,000. So, of course, what do you think what's the first thing I do?
You went to Dell and went, I want a Precision at this price range, and built one out.
Bingo! I did exactly that. I went to Dell and started speccing out a Precision 5810 with the exact specs that they said. Now, I actually should give a bit of a caveat. I couldn't do exactly for a couple reasons. One, this iMac is using a graphic card that doesn't exist yet.
Mm-hmm.
2, it most likely is going to use newer Xeons. Plus, they didn't give the details of the Xeons. They just said 8 cores. So, I went and grabbed the only 8-core option Dell had. I spec'd out 32 gigs of ECC RAM. I spec'd out a PCI Express 8X SSD, so it's actually going to go faster than the one Apple has. And what's the GPU I picked? I picked like the second highest end. No, I picked the highest end AMD Fire Pro they had.
Mm-hmm.
So, keep in mind things might be off. Apple's claim is that that the competition, quote unquote, starts at $7,000. The exact price of my build, $5,165.13 plus shipping. Oh, which was free.
Plus,
oh, thank God!
Which is
thank
free.
God, there's free shipping to come with my $5,000 workstation.
Pretty much. So okay, whenever Apple claims, "Oh, we're cheaper than the competition," I'm just going to immediately look at that and go, "In what world, Apple, are you living in?"
Well, in this case, they would be cheaper. I mean, plus, you wouldn't have the screen. But again, it's hard to judge based on that card. Plus, I mean, this is an older Fire Pro. It's not that good of a card. So, I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, it'd be much better if I had direct access to the components, so I could just pick them out myself. Oh, wait, I just did that.
Yep.
So, yeah, I went to Newegg and then started speccing out a miniature workstation with these same specs.
And what was your total price came to?
$4,452.53. And that's with, I think, an overshot on the 8-core. I picked $1,000 Xeon.
Okay.
And then I also picked out a $5,000 Quadro. I mean, a $3,000 Quadro.
And you're still cheaper and probably more capable. And the thing is we're going to have to wait to see a teardown of this thing to see even if how serviceable it is and how much they're going to charge. Because again, if they charge ridiculous amounts and it's not serviceable, so i.e. it breaks, throw it away, you're going to see very few companies that are going to be interested in this thing, except for the few that are so thoroughly drunk in the Apple Kool-Aid that taking the knowledge bat and the clue by 4 to them simultaneously won't do a thing.
Here's one to keep an eye on. I mean, the home build, whatever. I mean, it's going to be hard to have a home build that you can say, because no matter what build I make, the Apple fan will always be able to say, but this is an all-in-one and takes up less space. And they're always going to win that argument. They're always going to win that one. Here's the one to keep an eye on. The HP Z1. When that one gets its update. It's going to be getting its update within the next, I would say, 3-4 months. That's the computer to keep an eye on. That's HP's all-in-one workstation. And here's the important part about HP's. You flick 2 levers on the front.
And the back comes off.
The screen comes up like the hood on a car.
Nice. Okay.
And you could and from there you could tear down the whole thing in 30 minutes. I would do that build, but I couldn't get close to what the iMac Pro has. And with that, we move on to the new iPad announcement.
Ooh.
And this is both major and very minor. Basically, they only announced a new iPad Pro. There used to be a 9.7 inch and a 12.9 inch. The 9.7 inch is gone. It is replaced by a 10.5 inch iPad Pro. But the body is still the same size.
Okay.
So there's less bezel space. Otherwise, everything else is the same. Still runs on an A10X. Still starts at 64 gigs, goes up to 512. Still comes in space gray, pink, gold, and silver. It's pink. It's not rose gold. Stop kidding yourself.
It's pink.
It's pink. You know, it's still the same resolution, still the same battery life, supposedly. It's still same everything else. I mean, I'm fine with that. The only thing I have a little bit of problem, and it's a very minor one, and I'm probably the only one in the entire planet that cares about this. Less bezel space.
Let me guess. Oh, okay. I was going to go with the blue pixels around black and white text.
No. What sort of crazy person do you think I am?
A crazy person.
Anyway.
Anyway.
It means less surface area that's safe to touch without triggering something on the touchscreen. That was the one thing the iPad did extremely well. On the original one, it had huge bezels for the sole purpose of having a safe space to grab. That's pretty much gone the wayside after Steve Jobs passed away, and now there's even less of it. And that might make handling it a little more awkward, but I think it'll probably... Gripers like me will just get used to it, grow up, and be like, oh, okay. Undisputed says there's a GPU upgrade. There is not. It is still the same A10X that was in it before. The screen, I think, actually got a little bit of an upgrade, but again, I hate going with specs on screens because I could throw numbers at you all day, and the only one you're going to comprehend is the screen size and the resolution.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I think the screen refresh rate went up to 120 hertz. I believe that's what Unjust Banana is talking about. That means nothing to anyone unless you're like a super nerd. And then at that point, you're just going to be like, well, okay. There's one thing of note I want to point out. You were commenting earlier about the 13-inch iPad Pro and how it seemed unwieldy and kind of an afterthought.
Yes, and he had the 12.9. That it still looks like it's going to be unwieldy and an afterthought.
I want to point out something here.
Okay.
You notice how there's not a pink one?
Yes, I did actually notice that. There's no pink one.
You notice how there still isn't a pink one?
Nope, there is no pink one.
I'm going to call it now.
I can only hope. Okay, go ahead.
2 or 3 years from now, possibly even 1, this 13-inch iPad Pro is not going to exist.
I will actually agree with that assessment.
I think Apple has realized this was a mistake. This worked internally, but the public hates it.
Yeah. And I can go off of the reasons. I mean, just my experience of playing with the thing is just...
It was top heavy.
It was top... yeah, it was very uncertain. Like, I'm holding this thing and I'm feeling like this thing's just going to slip right out of my hands. The big thing is that the operating system didn't know what to do with the space. So it's got this nice big screen and it's wasting so much screen real estate because it doesn't know what to do with it.
That's actually one thing I want to talk about next. And this might actually be the thing that makes my prediction just fall through the floor. And that's some of the updates that iOS is going to bring. Now, there's some minor things, like they're redoing how notifications works. There's the like quick tools access they're putting on one page. Apparently, it was 2 for a while. The biggest one that's of note to me is the fact that they're changing the way the dock works on the iPad. Currently, there's a dock where you put 5 tiles on the bottom, and then it's just there no matter how many different pages you swipe through. They're letting that go up to like, they didn't even say how many. It was like 20. And on top of that, you can flick up from any time and bring that dock up. On top of being able to remember where window placements was in the task manager. I'm going to call it the task manager for better thing. It basically for a lack of a better word. There's actually a lot of big changes they're actually bringing to the iPad. That might actually breathe some new life into the 13-inch one. It is actually definitely going to make the iPad feel more like a desktop operating system without actually being a desktop operating system. Including a file management system. So, there's a lot of updates coming to the iPad and possibly the iPhone. They didn't say whether File Manager was coming to the iPhone. That's actually going to make it actually bring it back up to the times with Windows 98. And as much as I mock that for saying, hey, look, you're catching up with Windows 98, it's about time. Good. Finally, huzzah, huzzah. That's going to be one less thing that everyone else can make fun of you for. Thank you for finally listening to us teasing you for 6 years.
Yeah. And now we're going to tease you for taking so long to listen to us teasing you.
And then now we're going to make fun of you for making a speaker that looks exactly like my microphone.
And we finally have gotten to the HomePod.
I present to you the Amazon Echo competitor. There's not much to say, really. Well, there is. Here's the difference between the HomePod and the Echo. First off, the HomePod's more expensive. And
it's
not
Apple.
like,
it's going to be more expensive.
And I don't mean like, oh, hey, look, there's the $50 Apple tax. Or the 20% Apple tax. I mean, it's way more expensive than the Echo. I think the highest end Echo was like $140 or $150. The HomePod is $330.
Okay. I have finally managed to get through all of the marketing wank. All the way at the bottom of the page. They finally start to list the specifications.
Of the HomePod?
Of the HomePod, yeah.
Yeah, now, there's going to be a lot that Apple, when they announced this at the keynote, clearly more focused this as a speaker rather than an Echo competitor. The Echo was more focused as a smart hub. It was more focused as something that can control all your devices. HomePod is, they are clearly marketing this as a high-powered iPod with speakers that are automatically going to adjust based on wherever you are in the room. Adjust its little array of 7 speakers. Or what did they call it? They called them something else that I'm sure an audio freak knows what the term means, and I thought it was really... There's 7 tweeter array. Which, I've never heard of that, but I'm also not an audiophile.
Tweeter is the description is the name for the small speakers responsible for the higher range frequencies.
Okay. Oh, good to know. They're using that array and using the way sound bounces off the walls against the microphone to adjust and direct the sound based on where it's placed in the room. In addition to using this massive subwoofer on the top. to give supposedly a very high quality sound. Now, of course, there's no way they could simulate how good it would be in the keynote auditorium. There's also no way they could simulate that through, my $5 sound bar I was listening to. And whatever other audio hardware. So, I have no earthly idea how good it's going to sound. They also wanted to strictly enforce the fact that this thing is not always listening to you. It is just always only listening for, "Hey Siri," and then listening to whatever you say.
Mm-hmm.
Apple is definitely focusing here in this new age that we are not spying on you. Scout's honor.
That is something that I can always go, yay, Apple, because they seriously have been sticking to their pretty much their security and privacy system, saying, we don't know the password to your phone. When the U.S. government came and knocked on their door and said, hey, we need you to unlock this, Apple went, can't help you.
And for that, I appreciate that. I just wish that, the speaker didn't look like... It just looked better. Like, okay. Like, I know how this conversation's going to go with any Apple fanboy I ask. I'm going to say, I hate the way the HomePod looks. And they're going to say, well, what did you expect? And my answer's going to be, well, not that.
It actually kind of looks, like from the top view, actually looks like a dinner plate from the top view.
It kind of does. But, I mean, this is what they're going to stick with. And for that, as long as you're happy, Apple.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're happy. I'm going to wait till the second gen before I contemplate it.
What I think we should do is actually, at some point, actually go bug our local Apple store when they get some of this newer hardware in and play with it at the store.
What do you think I'm known for there?
Playing with the hardware at the store.
Oh, that, and also bringing in an excerpt to be looked at. An excerpt, for those of you who don't know, that is a massive server that Apple used to make back in the day. And with that actually does conclude all the Apple announcements. And we already went over the time with that. But I promised someone I would talk about this. That I would talk about Mixer. Now, Mixer.com, what's the first thing that pops in your head? What do you think it is?
I would actually assume that it's either an audiophile site for graphic equalizers or some site that has like recipes for drink mixes. That's what I'd go for.
You want to know how wrong you are?
Very, because I'm looking at the stream right now and I'm seeing that it's a looks like a multicast device service.
Mixer.com is beam.pro. Beam.pro, if you don't know, is a Twitch competitor that came out in... Oh, what did they say? They said they first came out in November 2014. Their claim to fame is being able to reward viewers by letting them build up a virtual currency and use it to have things happen on the stream. As well as also supporting a higher end encoding, which allowed near zero stream delays. That's basically what Beam's claim to fame is. Beam was bought out by Microsoft in August. Now, finally, last month, in late May, Microsoft has renamed them Mixer. Now,
Yeah.
if you play on an Xbox, you already know a lot of the pains I'm about to tell you. You already know that Microsoft has been pushing Beam hard to the point where Twitch streaming from the Xbox pretty much doesn't work. They basically borked it so badly it doesn't work. Streaming from Beam does work. I'm sorry. Streaming to Mixer does work. From here on out, if I ever say Beam, I mean Mixer. In fact, here's something you don't know. You probably don't know either. If you're running Windows 10 right now, you have tools in your operating system right now that you probably don't even know about to be able to stream to Mixer.
I was aware of that those tools were added. I was reading it on one of the post-mortem updates. I don't remember where I was reading this, but I was aware that these had happened. I've never fiddled with it. You can bring it up using the WinG in a game. You can fiddle with it there. I've never bothered.
There's a good reason you haven't.
I'm going to start up a game just to see what happens when I try.
Here's the thing. A lot of these built-in tools sound nice, but take it from me. Take it from a guy who actually streams, though casually, does actually stream and put pride in his work. These built-in tools, whether it be on the Xbox, on the PS4, or even in Windows G, are garbage. They are garbage because you cannot customize the stream. You cannot do anything like this green screen I have here that you can't see right now because it's properly chroma keyed out. You can't do that on these built-in systems. Though apparently some people on the PS4 actually found a way. You can't do things like the on-screen notifications. You can't do any of those sort of things. Now, Mixer, one thing I actually didn't know that I found out today, Mixer apparently does support co-streaming natively. But that's also something that you could, as I'm doing right now, work your way in with a little bit of know-how with a third-party software like OBS. Now, a lot of streamers are looking at Mixer and the way it's being shoved down their throats through the Xbox as why even bother trying? This is such a waste of time. Everyone knows that you stream on Twitch. Twitch is where you're going to actually get viewers, etc., etc., etc. The thing is that this is how you compete. Expose yourself as much as you can and get as many people using it as you can. That's how you build it up. Mixer could catch up with Twitch. I'm not saying it's going to, but it could. Streaming, despite existing for quite some time, like how old is Twitch now? 5 years? 6 years?
Twitch is getting up there in age, so yeah, I'd say about 5-6 years old now.
And on top of that, you have everyone else and their mother starting to get into live streaming, even with non-gaming content. In fact, right now on Mixer, what do you think the top game being streamed is? Without looking.
Well, I had peeked at it earlier, and I saw a lot of Minecraft.
Top 3
but
from the bottom.
I would guess Overwatch would certainly be in there.
Alright, top 5. From the bottom. PlayerUnknown's Battleground, 298. That's not too surprising. Minecraft, 347. Overwatch, 410. Friday the 13th, 460. Number 1 on the list. Web shows. At 3,308. Not even gaming content. Just generic web show. And it's not just Mixer moving this direction. Every streaming outlet does this now. YouTube, of course. You can stream whatever you want as long as it's not pornographic. Facebook Live, which is catching everyone off guard. Periscope, which barely exists anymore. Even Twitch. You can stream talk shows like this one. As well as also just IRL streaming, where all you do is just chat with your chat.
Yep. Alright. I have just started up Arma 3. I'm going to see what happens when I hit the WinG key. WinG.
And then we lost Regret the Van forever at the end.
Arma 3 did not actually like that at all. Like, it makes my screen flash and that's it.
Yeah.
Arma 3 is probably not a good example of that because Arma 3 swallows inputs.
Yeah, and I tried it earlier with Terra, and it was very buggy with that too, but it's Terra. So that's not a good example either. Here's the thing. If you're contemplating starting streaming, I'm going to give you some basic tips. 1. Don't even bother with these built-in tools. These built-in tools are great for, like, messing around, starting up without a thought in the world. But if you're actually wanting to go and put any sort of quality into your stream, if you want to actually go ahead and do any sort of customization, just go download OBS and start learning it. It's not that hard to learn, and it's free. There's that for starters. Then 2, if you're just starting up, I recommend looking at a tool called Restream.io. This is a simulcasting tool. This will let you go to every single little streaming site you can get your hands on. And the main reason I bring... And that was actually the other point I wanted to bring up. A lot of other people are... I mean, anyone could go and use Restream. And Twitch right now is actually starting to get to the point with Mixer, Smashcast, and YouTube that was actually one of the main reasons why the Twitch affiliate program came into existence. It was to lock down the current small streamers they have. So that's one of the biggest issues. That's one of the biggest things that the Twitch affiliate program had. It was an exclusivity clause to say that if you're streaming with Twitch, that's the only place you can stream. You can't simulcast to Twitch and Mixer and Smashcast and YouTube, which are pretty much the only 4 platforms. You go to Mobcrush too, but why bother? Just don't. Just don't do that. Be happy forever. Don't go to Mobcrush.
Terrible things happen there.
Yeah. If you're me, you're just going to get called fat all day. That's like all I got there. It was just like, wow, you're fat. And it's like, wow, no kidding. You figured it out all by yourself. So that's what I would do. I would use OBS, learn it, enjoy it, and customize it to your personal taste. And then use Restream, expose yourself as much as you can while keeping your clothes on.
Yeah. OBS, I'm just going to throw this in there. OBS is actually not that hard to learn.
No, it's not.
It has a few fiddly and a few quirks, but once you figure out how it thinks, its logic, it is actually very straightforward and very easy to use.
All right, actually, I should put in one caveat right now, actually, with the numbers I gave earlier. Web shows seemed really high. I just figured out why. As we are broadcasting live right now, EA's E3 conference or press announcement is going on right now.
Okay, yeah, that will drive up hits very high.
Yeah, but even earlier when there wasn't, but even earlier when I was doing show prep and E3 wasn't going, web shows was still the highest. And it was not by a small amount. It wasn't by 3,000, but by like 400, it was top. It was like double what Overwatch was, which was the top at the time. But that's basically my point, is that gamers who are looking at Mixer and just going, oh, that's worthless, if you're not in a Twitch affiliate, I would highly recommend Restream, get your exposure on Mixer, Smashcast, and all the other ones. That is something that's going to help a lot. Do you have any advice before we start closing up shop?
No, that's pretty much it. And by the way, when G never actually fired up on Arma, it just kept flashing the screen at me.
That figures.
Like, I have no idea what it was trying to do, but Arma was taking it as something.
All right. In fact, actually, real quick, I'm going to see if I can get any sort of very quick little rundown of E3 while it's going on, just to throw at the end here.
E3 is happening. There you go.
Yeah, E3 is happening. So far, the biggest announcements are Darth Maul is apparently playable in Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Neat.
FIFA 18 exists. New Battlefield 1 maps are coming soon. Apparently, EA Origin Access free week starts now. So, that's gotta mean something. FIFA 18 still exists. EA reveals Star Wars Battlefront 2's DLC maps. Need for Speed Payback. I'm sorry. I read that wrong. That's basically nothing. Or is that gameplay heist revealed? I don't know. NBA Live 18 exists. Madden 18 exists. BioWare's new IP revealed as Anthem. Revealed.
Okay.
EA reveals A Way Out, new co-op action game from Brothers Dev. Star Wars Battlefront 2 Online is... Star Wars Battlefront 2 is getting online multiplayer. That's Anthem again. Did I just mention that one?
Yeah,
Yep.
you did. You did mention
I did mention A Way Out. I'm right now just reading off GameSpot's Twitter feed real quick. And they have a lot of repeats. Getting live to go. Okay, so that's everything that's been announced so far. So far, it's all been EA stuff. I'm gonna be real honest. I don't care about EA. They control some IP that I care about, but I mean, they ruined Ultima and they ruined CNC. So.
And
and they ruined Plants vs. Zombies. I forgot about that.
I mean, they've even managed to screw up The Sims, so...
Yeah, there's that too. So, I think with that, it's time for us to close up shop. Actually get out of here, because we went a half-hour overtime, but rightfully so. There was a lot to cover, and I'm sure next week there's going to be even more to cover as the dust from E3 settles down. That's going to do it for us. You can find me at twitch.tv/eagle_falcon. You can find Regret the Van at twitch.tv/regret_the_van. Take care, everyone. We will see you all next week.